Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where it's all about helping you complete your financial journey to retirement. Discover time-tested strategies and get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Break away from the herd and go for the retirement you dream of. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I super duper appreciate it. I really love the support. I love the reviews. I am going to talk about the reviews here on this show or maybe the next show. Going to cover some of the reviews that you, the listeners, have left on iTunes, and I super appreciate it. Now, I am the income engineer, Kraig Strom, certified financial planner, chartered financial consultant, investment advisor, representative, etc., etc., etc. With all that said, please don't act on things that you hear on this show as if you're hearing advice for you personally. This is not a personal financial advice show. And you really should look at any podcast, any item that you might read, any TV show, YouTube channel you might read on finance. You really shouldn't look at it as a personal finance show or personal advice show for you, because I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner. But the key piece is that many times when you're listening to other shows, those folks aren't actually financial planners. They are just folks who are giving out, in many cases, some good, solid financial, topics and financial information. But it really shouldn't be financial advice for you. You really, if you're wanting to get good, solid financial advice, I recommend that you meet with a qualified financial planner. Now, of course, this show, I don't hide it. I would love you to meet with me. Absolutely would love you to meet with me. I meet with folks all over the country through the miracle of technology nowadays. The world is a very small place. But whatever you decide, before you act on things that you might hear on this show, that you might hear on a YouTube channel, a podcast, a radio show, whatever it is, please meet with someone about your specific situation. Now, I'm going to jump right in today because I want to go through a Watch Your Step topic that's kind of close to my heart. Watch Your Step is a segment that I started when I first did the show that just, if I see things, I want to say things about it. If I see things that I want to caution you about and I want to caution my clients about, I'm going to say something. So you saw the title of this episode, Just Say No. Just say no to your kids. The best financial example that you can set for your kids is to be in good financial shape. And that means that you should not sacrifice your own financial security to put your own children's financial needs ahead of your own. For example, college. College is the one that I see all the time. I met a couple not long ago who had done just that. They had put their children's college, their children's financial situation ahead of their own. Rather than having their kids go to community college, rather than having their 4 kids work jobs like I did, like you listening to this, you might have worked a job, going through college. Rather than do that, they, in their 50s, now have spent over $200,000 on their children for college. Sadly, none of their children were ever going to get a degree that leads to a career that earns more than $75,000 a year. So like most Americans, right, mom and dad did not have enough saved for retirement in general. They compounded the problem by giving their kids $200,000 of free education, but they didn't really actually work for. They did not earn it. They don't have any earnings related, memories associated with it because they didn't earn it. Then they met me, and mom and dad asked, "How do we retire?" My answer was, stop giving your kids money and make them work for their college education. Maybe pull them back from college and send them to community college to take care of prerequisites that are costing them a blinking fortune. And then, unfortunately, I had to tell them, and you probably need to work until you're 70 or older because you handicapped your retirement plans so badly for your kids that they will have to take care of you. Right? See, that's the thing. Financially, in this situation, the mom and dad, like most of us, and I've been in this position thinking this myself, they thought, well, I'm helping them. It's the right thing to do. It's my job as a parent. Well, fast forward into your later years. And then what, right? Fast forward into your later years and your kids have to take care of you. That's the tough part, right? You've got to work until you're 70. Then your retirement plans are so bad that you might actually need to call on your kids for help. Unfortunately, the college degree that your kids are planning to get will not provide them enough income to be able to financially take care of anyone but themselves, and just barely, right? That's really tough news to deliver to a mom and dad in this situation. Now, to put things in perspective, right? Just a little perspective on this. A welder, an electrician, or a plumber can make more money earlier in life than a PhD college student. In fact, I met a nice gentleman recently that proved this point exactly. He has a PhD. He's now in his mid-30s. Took him nearly 7 years to complete college. And in addition to the expense, this is just out-of-pocket expense from family and himself, he has $120,000 in debt, student loan debt that remains. And remember, student loan debt is just the most amazing debt in the world because you can't get rid of it. Student loan debt cannot be bankrupted away. So let's go over that. He's a PhD guy, right? Nice guy, by the way, really nice. He has a PhD in psychology, and he makes $73,000 a year with $120,000 in debt, and it took him nearly 7 years to complete that degree and get to that income level. Now, on the other hand, I have a friend, right, who's the same age and runs his own auto repair business, and he does not have any debt and did not have to spend 7 years in college to learn how to be a really good mechanic, and he makes twice as much as the PhD. No debt, twice as much income. I'm not saying that college is bad, but TV host and now philanthropist and activist Mike Rowe sums it up really well. Mike Rowe, I used to watch him with my daughter on Dirty Jobs. I'm sure you might have as well. But Mike Rowe said it best. He said, "We are lending money we don't have to kids who can't pay it back to train them for jobs that no longer exist." Now, I would go a little further. Some of these jobs that the kids are going after, they exist. They're just not worth what they used to be worth, and they don't pay the income they used to pay. At some point, please, this is my watch your step cautionary tale. At some point, you need to protect your own financial position by saying no to your kids' financial needs and financial requests. You've got to get them out there on their own, hunting and fishing and doing their own thing and taking care of their own world. My wife and we're struggling with this one right now. We've told my daughter for years that we will not pay for her master's program, that if we're going to help her, we're going to help to subsidize her. We did not pay full ride. We would not, and we told her that we wouldn't do it. We would not pay full ride for her college. She was going to work. She was going to work her way through it. Now, she's getting close, and we've reminded her that we will not pay for her master's degree program. And she knows it. We'll see. It's coming up here in the next couple of years that there's going to be those kind of discussions like, what's she going to do now? And I'm crossing my fingers that the lessons have been set and we'll be able to make our way through this. It's going to be a fun one, but please don't sacrifice your own financial security for your kids because they may not be positioned financially to be able to come back and take care of you because you set yourself up for potentially not so great future. Now, in segment 2, today I want to cover a listener question, a question from Kate. Kate says, let's see, let me get this here. I listened to your episode on how to settle an estate after a family member dies. Yes, that was just recently, episode 207, how to settle an estate after a family member dies. And in this case, sadly, it was my father-in-law. And thankfully, we had a living trust and will and everything in place. And you can go back and listen to that on the process for settling an estate. Now, Kate goes on to say, my husband and I would like to get our estate plan done. We're stuck on how to divide up our largest asset, which is our house. We have 4 children and a granddaughter we have been raising since she was 5. Well, that's awesome. We have been blessed to live on a small lake in a great town, and all of our kids have grown up in this house. We think we want it to stay in the family. What are your thoughts on how we should divide things up? Wow. First of all, Kate, you had me at lake house. That is awesome. I love it. I will move in tomorrow, right? Because if those of you listen to the show, I am originally from Maine. We spent our summers on the lake with a little cabin, and I just love the lake house. But let me continue. So I love the lake house idea. The kids love each other now, right? So this is really serious stuff because I've been through this many, many, many times because I'm 22 years in this financial services world. So it's inevitable that I've been through this more than most people, of course, because most people only go through this conversation once. I've been through it hundreds and hundreds of times. Now, kids today, your kids, Kate, love each other. They love each other now, but there's no guarantee that they will like each other after you're gone, right? Keeping the house in the family sounds like a good idea, but let's unpack the reality of this, okay? Let's just unpack it a bit. Take the emotionals away from it, and let's just talk about it. If your house is worth $300,000, now some of you listening might be on the East Coast saying, oh my gosh, that's a mansion. Well, here in California, $300,000 is not a mansion, and in Maine, where I grew up, $300,000 is a pretty decent little lake house. I mean, it's a nice little lake house. So I don't know where Kate lives, but let's say it's worth $300,000. And when you die, that's $60,000 per child. If the children, the 5 kids, are all equal beneficiaries, right? That's $60,000 per child wrapped up in that house. How do we then pay for taxes, toilets, trash, maintenance? Each child will have to put money into the pot every year to pay whatever needs to be done. What if one or more of the kids moves away for work or family, and now they are unable to travel back to the home on the lake and take advantage of it and use it and enjoy it, right? And what if one of the kids needs the $60,000 inheritance? What if they don't want to or cannot enjoy the lake house? Now the other 5 or 3 or 2 children need to buy out the kids who want to sell. It is a recipe for feuding, and I recommend every time this comes up, and it came up recently, I recommend that you avoid putting your kids in this situation. Consider drafting your estate plan, your living trust, your will, etc., so that each child is an equal beneficiary. If they all want to come together and keep the lake house, it's their choice. If one or more of the children want out, the remaining siblings can buy them out with cash or getting a loan on the house. That's common. You might have 2 of the kids who are never going to leave that small town, and they love that little house and the kids, and they want to make sure that it stays in the family. Those 2 kids can get a loan together and buy out the other three children, the other three siblings, so that they get their $60,000, and the two kids who wanted to keep the house, they keep the house. And of course, it'll be open for family gatherings and such. And when the other kids can come back, it's all good, right? Either way, give them a choice. The more restrictions you put on them, the more chance that there is that things will go sideways and they'll feud and they'll be upset. I had a situation very similar to this in the Bay Area of California. Very expensive real estate community in the Bay Area outside of San Francisco, where 4 children inherited a house together. And the house had significant value. I mean, $900,000 for this little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Berkeley, California. That's right. Yes, if you're living in the East Coast and you heard me say $800,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Berkeley, California, it wasn't an error. That is accurate. Now, the challenge is those 4 kids really don't live near each other anymore. Only 3 of them, in the vicinity of the house, one of them close to the house. They wanted to initially keep the house. They thought it was a great rental opportunity. When I explained that the actual return on investments for an $800,000 asset compared to the rent coming in really wasn't that great. It wasn't much better than, a guaranteed annuity or a CD rate. I mean, it really wasn't that great when you consider the overall tremendous value of the house. The kids sat back down together and they all agreed that it just wasn't worth feuding and fighting over, and they all agreed to sell the house, and they each received their inheritance. Now, interesting piece, remember, because it was in an estate plan, a living trust, all drafted up, they received a step up in basis. What is a step up in basis if you're not familiar with it? If mom and dad exactly in that situation. So Kate, I don't know what Kate paid for the cabin, but I know that when the folks that I was talking about up in Berkeley with the $800,000 average house, that house was purchased for less than $200,000. I believe it was actually almost $100,000 purchase price many, many, many years ago, meaning that it had a gain from, let's say, $100,000 to $800,000. Well, that's a $700,000 taxable gain. If mom and dad had sold the house, there was some offsets that they could have used as a married couple. But man, the estate planning rules say that if it's set up right, and in many places and states it just happens this way, what happens with a step up in basis is that when mom and dad pass away, the purchase price of the house steps up to the value on the day they passed away. So now the basis, the purchase price technically that we use to calculate where our tax liability starts, steps up to the day that mom passed away, for example, $800,000. If the kids sell the house for $800,000, there's no taxable gain because they had a step up in basis, right? So to recap, if your largest asset is a big piece of real estate or even 401ks that I'm going to talk about next time, whatever it is, rather than consider restrictions to keep it in the family, consider giving your kids the choice, right? Give them the option to choose. Let them work together. However, if one of the kids, wants out, giving them the option to get out so that there's no feuding or resentment, where I've seen it where some people have put complete lock boxes on pieces of property assets, and it just generates resentment because one of those kids needs to manage the trust, the estate after you're dead, and now you've put that kid in a position to manage this, let's say, in that case, a Berkeley house, right? Well, now they have to manage that Berkeley house for how many years, and they got to deal with a feuding group of kids, siblings. It's just a recipe for unfriendliness with the family. So Moral of the story, give your kids choice. And if they choose ultimately to keep it in the family, they will choose. And it'll be a much stronger bond with each other and the property, in my opinion, than if you made the decision for them. I hope that helps, Kate. Thank you so much for sending in the question. I really do appreciate it. And just another final note on this. If you love your kids, give them a living trust for Christmas. And what I mean by that is, get your own estate plan done. Get your living trust and your wills and your powers of attorney and get that done, because the alternative, especially here in California, is a probate system nightmare. If you die in California without a living trust, it's at least 18 months in probate court, and it will cost $10,000 to $15,000 minimum in legal fees and all kinds of junk fees from the courts. If you love your kids, give them the gift of your personal estate planning. Now, great thing here, I have, as a paralegal on the law firm side of the operation that I work with, I can facilitate living trust and estate plans at a fantastic discounted rate. Now, I don't quote prices on my podcast because everybody's estate and situation is different. Sometimes we have folks that have multiple properties and complicated estates. Sometimes they're just good, solid, basic estate plans. The bottom line is, I want to help you implement your estate plan. Christmas gift ultimate. Get your estate plan done. And if you really want to go crazy, give your kids their own gift of an estate plan, because sure enough, I had a listener recently actually gift 2 estate plans for each of one for each of their kids, so that their kids would have their estate plan in addition to their own. That is awesome, right? Hello, Jen. Love you. That was super, super exciting to help you give that gift of good estate planning to your kids. If you'd like to take advantage of that same offer, please send me an email, Kraig@kraigstrom.com. Yes, this is a selfish plug to work with me. I would love that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. We took notes for you, so if you missed any part of the show, you can find a full transcript of each episode at personalpensionradio.com. Be sure to download your free retirement income crisis report at personalpensionradio.com. While you're at it, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening. Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.